Okay, we can get started close enough to 12. This is a meeting of all the leadership for the three groups, and anybody on those teams that wants to be on, or on the commission wants to be on. So we have Judy, Ainsley, and I for ABE. We have Andrea for higher education, and I don't see, is anybody out for career tech? I don't know if Diane is coming on or not, Diana Bailey. But if somebody here is on that committee, feel free to. What we're going to do is just go over the now edited report based on the meetings we've had for each of these groups, and put it into one document. What's going to happen after that is Monday, Judy, Ainsley, and I are going to meet with Bethany Young, who's in GoCap, who's Ainsley's boss, who knows all about how to format reports and things. She's going to reformat it. Judy's going to do the final editing on it. She's such a great editor. So and that's going to be the report we share with the commission on Thursday. So that's the process that we're going to go through. So today we can talk overall about the report, and I would like to, when we get to the AB GED special ed one, I would like to submit a new section on data sharing based on yesterday's meeting that we had with James, Rogan? I'm sorry, get his name right here. And Bowden, James Bowden, who is the database manager at Department of Information Technology, who has been working with Department of Labor on their database ever since they took over in 2008. And he presented. How many of you were not at yesterday's meeting? I think Riley, you were on. Alyssa, you weren't. John, you were. John, you were. Adam, I don't think you were on, but Andrea, were you on yesterday?
For half of it, for the first hour or a little less.
Okay, and so some of you have, but just briefly, he went through and showed us how data is entered at the institutional level and how it's maintained on a daily basis and updated every night during the night. And then so the next day people come in and they have the teachers come and have their attendance rosters and everything, and they have a computer. And he showed how all that is maintained, and he can report out anything that on that data, and he's been doing it for years, and has all kinds of possibilities of all kinds of different reports that he's created that he can pull up, or he can create new ones that people want. So we went through that discussion, and he did a PowerPoint on that, which we're going to make available to anybody who wants. Put it in the record, and you can go to it. Okay, so you want to go forward, Judy, as our titular stakeholder leader.
Well, I was going to hand it over to you because I thought you had the idea of going through the document, although obviously we can't go through it line by line. It's almost 20 pages. So I don't know what your thought was about that.
My suggestion is we just show it to everybody if there's any last minute kinds of things. So we have the ABE, GED, special ed, then we have higher ed, and we have career technology, which we edited during this week with people. And Nancy has put it all in the document she sent out to you, which you can put up there in a second. So I was going to suggest we just go through it. I do want, on the basis of yesterday, to submit a paragraph, which would probably generate some discussion on data sharing. Okay. So, right at the, okay, so we go in, do you want to just go through the whole thing just really quickly, Ainsley, and explain it, or you just want to go start with, okay, let's just start with that. I wanted to submit at the very beginning there above, where we have this thing, adult basic education, so then number of completions. I want to insert before that, can you cut and paste what I sent you? Okay, if you can read this, I don't know, it came out, maybe put in a better script. Make it a little bigger, okay. this is what I wrote as a result of yesterday's meeting, which may cause some discussion. Data collection and sharing. The capabilities of the Central Repository of Correctional Education Data and Information from 2008 to present, and I think it's called CE Student, have been poorly used to manage and evaluate programs and to share information with the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services. That to me is the issue. And let me just go through this paragraph with you because this is kind of the rationale. The Department of Information Technology, DO-IT, worked with MSDE and then with DOL to develop educational program database for correctional education program. The database contains the entire 2008 to present record of student information and program, including all attendance, enrollment, waiting list, program completion, certificates, and high school diplomas, GED, and more. This database should be used for daily program management, evaluation, and annual reports. For several years, DOL has not used most of the capabilities of this database for regular program review, management, and evaluation, or annual CE reports. DOL has started to create its own database separate from DO-IT and DPSCS participation. Because DOL did not understand the capabilities of CEA.
Can you keep scrolling down so we can see the text?
That's the one, I'm just a green one as I'm submitting. So I'm just trying to read it.
Yeah.
And just make sure it makes sense, because I wrote that quickly this morning. And it's got a lot of little typos. And this last sentence, because DOL did not understand the capabilities of CE students to produce records, it was difficult to obtain answers to the Commission's questions and requests for data. So I present that as a new insert, which we said we would do after we heard about the database from yesterday's meeting with James Bowden. So reaction.
Again, can you scroll down just so we can see the end of that? There we go. Thank you. Because DOL didn't understand.
There are some.
Rochelle has her hand up.
Go ahead.
So I think my first reaction is to the beginning around the database being poorly used. I'm not sure if that is from the time frame of 2008 to present, but I don't know that it was poorly used. I think one of the things that's not in the paragraph is that there's one person who has the access and the ability to manage the data and has not produced the reports that that individual is now saying the database is capable of producing. So I do think that the conversation around that is a little bit more significant than the database being poorly used. And at the bottom, where it says, because DOL did not understand the capabilities of the CE student to produce, I'm not sure that it was a question of not understanding the capabilities versus the data just not being given at the time that it was requested. So I don't know how we might reframe. I don't have suggestions for reframing. I just wanted to take one of those, the way that it's
Okay.
it's worded.
Well, I respectfully have to disagree with something that you said at first. He's the person that manages it, but he has said, and we talked about it a little bit yesterday, that he has not received requests from you guys. And then he demonstrated how he could quickly do several reports because he's done them, but DOL has not been requesting reports when they're readily available, quickly available from him. And so the question is why? Because he's the person that was working with Department of Information Technology, was working with labor, and apparently he has contact with public safety as well as Maryland Department of Education for data. And why we had this, the database was there, but why wasn't it being used? Is the question, and that came up yesterday. And then I understand from your reaction yesterday, John, and you, that you're going to now really look at getting a dashboard made of things you need that he said he could do, and he showed the areas that he could do very quickly. So, but why wasn't it going on?
That's my point to that is, yes, that is what he said in the meeting, but that isn't accurate. So we produced the data, so we had to have the data. So I don't want to get into a back and forth about it, but we had to get the data because he has the main access to the data. So the data that was submitted did come from him, and it did take a long time to get there. Dashboard conversations have happened, and he's been a part of our CE meetings. And yesterday we heard that there is a capability to do a dashboard where before we heard there wasn't a capability. Yesterday we heard there was a capability to produce regular reports. Since subsequent to yesterday's meeting, I've generated the same list again and said, here are some of the regular reports that we would like to have. So I get that one snapshot yesterday, I don't think what we have here should be worded based on one snapshot from one individual.
I'm wording it out. What he told me, he told us, I guess, was went on to my questions yesterday, because I asked him if he had received any requests from you for did he receive our questions from the commission, the stakeholders group, for data such as attendance, enrollment, waiting lists. He said he was never asked to produce them, and he did not get any requests from you from Dollar. And so you're saying that you've been asking him and involving him. He says he said he has not been involved. So I think that we can edit this and put something in here, but I think we really need to have a meeting with him, with you guys, with public safety on this issue, because we have contradictory statements and we need to find out what actually happened. But meantime, we do have a data collection and sharing problem. That's for sure. Now we can word this the way we want and say, we can take out poorly or stuff like that, which is more, it's not very factual. It's more, opinion, but we can take things out like that and edit this. But I really feel that the data has not been used very well. It's been there, from what he said, the whole time that he's been working. He was quickly able to generate reports, a couple reports. So I can't wonder, but why we haven't been able to get timely answers to the questions we asked. And I don't know if anybody else on this stakeholders group or on the commissioners on this has a different opinion, but I don't think that we've been getting information in a very timely manner from Department of Labor, of course, for a lot of the questions. So I'd open it up to anybody else's comments.
I just think that if the Department of Labor is not going to admit that an issue exists, we're never going to be able to get over that hump. And then my second part is does the Department of Labor have proof that they reached out and asked for that data? Because you guys should have an email chain showing that they were ignoring your requests.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not here to provide it. I'm not even going to provide a recommendation for how it's worded. However, to the group here, Jim Bowden said specifically in that meeting that he's the only one with access to the information that we need. And then we got the information, albeit it took a while to get it. But then he also said we never requested it from him. So very specifically in his own statements, he contradicted. I don't know if it was on purpose. I don't know if he's covering up, what he's doing. He doesn't report to us. He reports to DoIT, which is not a part of the Maryland Department of Labor. And he doesn't fall under our purview for management or discipline or anything like that. But to be honest with you, I can see that this is yet another fragmentation of the process. And for what it's worth, Stephen, you're right. It took us a long time to get the data, no matter why the reason is. But the person who provided the data, number one, said he's the only person that has access to it. And then also said he was never asked for it. But yet we were able to provide it because we got it from him. So, contradictions all around. And at the end of the day, that was actually some of the reasons that I had some concern about having him be the one to present the information. But for what it's worth, I think that the concern is valid. I do believe that some version of this concern should be included, and I hope that it spurs action to fix the problem that we currently have. And again, it's kind of spurred on by the fact that there's a third agency involved, and we just don't have, unfortunately, access to manage that guy. You know, we're at his mercy.
Okay,
I think I want to echo John's sentiments just a bit, but then also to highlight that it seems like there is a lack of oversight in terms of management and accountability, and I think that also there is a lack of clarity around expectations, right? And so I think coming to the table collectively to say this is what we are requiring, this is the data that we're looking for. This is our expectations in terms of timeline, like just being really clear about what the needs are, and then also being really strategic about who is that person to collect that data, because it can't be just one person, right? That doesn't work. What if this person leaves, right? We need some level of oversight and management, but also clarity around what our needs are in exchange.
okay, but my and I agree with both John, and I think that you stated it pretty well, that we need to have something here. We're gonna have to figure out how to word it. And the one thing I think is, just to be, I think, a little more accurate, is he doesn't collect the data. He manages the system. The data is put in at the institutional level. Everybody enters it there. And so he manages it, and he's the person that I understand people should go to if they want, things, certain reports and things, because he's the one that can do it. And if there's nobody in the agency that's overseeing in DOL who's overseeing that or working with him directly, that's an oversight, and that's something that really, I mean, there should be a data person. They should have access, albeit, I mean, maybe they shouldn't write code. He writes code, but they should have access to reports or able to get reports. But it's a problem. And yesterday when came up at the end that you guys, that Dollar was looking to create its own database. And then I think John, the implication was you want to now work with him to do that.
Yeah, it was based on him saying that he wasn't able to do it, but on the call he said he's able to do it. So just more of that,
So let's take
Steve,
advantage.
can I jump in real quick?
Go ahead.
So I'm looking at this from an IT professional perspective. And what I'm seeing here is that we have a database engineer, that's Jim Bowden. He's very technically capable. He's created a decent database system, quite honestly. And given the parameters of working within Division of Correction and all their security stuff, he's figured out a way to aggregate data from the different institutions up into a central repository, which he has access to and he can report upon. So that's all good. I think perhaps we need to look at this from a different perspective, though, in terms of the recommendation you're trying to make, and that is Jim Bowden needs an assistant. He's not a business analyst. He's a database engineer, so he's very technical, but he doesn't have the business acumen to be able to predict and project the types of reporting that Department of Labor needs, that DPSCS needs, that all the stakeholders need. So perhaps what we should recommend is that you create a position for a business analyst who has the same level of access to the database structure that he has, and that person can then be in charge of doing all the reporting that needs to occur for DOL, DPSCS, DOC, et cetera, et cetera. Jim Bowden, because he works for the IT department for the state, while his responsibility is CE student, it's not his only responsibility. So he's never going to be able to accurately or timely answer all of your requests, because the nature of his jobs is not going to allow him to do that. Plus, he doesn't have the business mindset. But if we had a business analyst and business analysts typically are skilled in SQL systems. They're skilled in reporting systems. They know how to write queries themselves. They know how to generate reports. If you could, perhaps find somebody who could do that, whether that person is an employee of DOL or DPSCS or a shared employee, I think that'll kind of take some of the heat off of Jim Bowden. And it'll also give this group a much better tool, and Department of Labor a much better tool to aggregate all the data that we need. It gives you a different contact person as opposed to trying to rely on an engineer to do a business analyst work. Does that
John,
make sense?
I'm glad you brought that up, just because of to kind of give historical knowledge on that. We have tried, Labor has tried, DPSCS even tried to get pins to help Jim Bowden, and I believe he does have a contractual person now. But I know my predecessor at Labor also tried, Alice Worth, and we were told no. And a lot of it had to do with we were getting pins taken away. I think every year from 2008 up until, and Rochelle, I don't know if they took any pins this year, they took pins from correctional ed every single year. One year, I believe it was like 18 that they took in 1 year. So trying to get another pin, and because it's do it, you have to get a do it person, right? Or I even tried to get somebody on the correctional ed Department of Labor side. So I think that's where, yes, you do need to say, hey, maybe that's a recommendation that not only do we need to look into figuring out a better data management to take this data management system and make it even better, but also get him help and support. Because you're right, he is the database manager. He is also the equipment manager at all the facilities and the servers. And so he has to go out when there's any issue, wiring, technology, and then he maintains the database. He also then can give, he sends out the reports twice a month. From those reports, other reports can be requested and asked based on what the needs are and that sort of thing. He doesn't analyze the data, right? That's up to Labor and then us at DPSCS. But you're right, that is his main, but he doesn't do anything other than this, by the way. CE student, his responsibility for correctional education and working on this database and the integration of how that works in our facilities is his main job. That is all he does.
Okay.
And it was set up this way, meaning that the servers, they're individual servers that are maintained at the facilities for security reasons, right? And it's on its own kind of separate network database from our mainframe. And then from there, he can pull each one of those schools from his mainframe, right, in Cumberland or wherever he is. He can do it from home too. But you're right. He does need somebody who is trained as a SQL Server manager to be able to manage that network.
Okay. I do want to, and I agree with John Griffin. I do respect your IT stuff, and I'm glad you're on this committee for that. So to keep us straight on how this thing works. And Danielle, you have the history, but I am concerned about something that if you're in a school system, whether it's a public school system or I guess a college system or whatever, you need data about annual report, and you need to be looking at it regularly on program attendance, closures, wait lists, or whatever, your completions, your testing results, etc. You need to do that on a regular basis, and I have to wonder whether that's happening at DOL, because he says he's not being asked for reports. You're saying you're asking for some reports, but are there there should be regular monthly, at least reviews of all the institutional stuff. That the data should be readily available. That's why we requested it, figuring you guys had it and we're using it. Well, you got it somewhere, let's see it. But you couldn't pull it up.
I think that's what Rochelle's issue was with this. And it's also my issue is that there is a report that comes to Labor twice a month, actually. They get it at the second week of the month, which is a basic pool where the principals and the headquarters can see here's what the stats and data is and any issues with that. So the principals can go in, make changes. Then there's a final pool at the end of the month for the previous month. So I think, and I even agree with Rochelle, is by saying that, you know, that 2008 to present, I even take offense at that because that's part of my tenure there. Like, so it's being used, right? But I think it's just, how is it being, right? How's it being used?
Well, that's the
Making
question.
sure that it's being better managed and better used for what the needs are, because the needs change every year. Every governor that comes in, right? Like different needs are need to be addressed. So I think that's something labor just, and I hope you guys would agree me saying this, we just need to say, okay, let's look at the database, what is happening, what it can do now, what do we want it to do, and how do we get there, right?
Stephen,
So-
can I jump in? Because I'm not comfortable if we're just going to put it up to staffing issues when it comes to data collection.
Oh, no,
They-
that's not working.
So right now what I'm hearing is that the Department of Labor and DPSCS is speaking for Jim Bowden, when from the horse's mouth, he said that the Department of Labor did not ask for that data. So I think that as a commission, it is our responsibility to hold the Department of Labor to that and provide us with those emails. Because I personally, in my opinion, do not believe that you all have been asking for that data.
And I have a question for Adam. Were you in the meeting yesterday?
I was not. I was inside of a
Okay.
facility.
So I'll ask Stephen then. Stephen, in the meeting yesterday, did Jim say that he was the only one with access to that data?
That's not what I said.
You are, I'm saying that
That
we
is not what I
did.
said. I said,
You're-
Jim, no, what we're talking
Jim is
about
the
is what
only one
Jim
with
said.
access, and Jim
Jim
gave us
said
the
that
data.
Jim said that the Department of Labor did not ask.
It was a lie. So I don't, I
Well,
hate to
then
say
you
that
guys,
in
then
this-
you guys should
I
have
hate to say
proof
that
of
here,
it.
but we got the
Then you
data.
guys should have proof.
Jim,
All right,
Jim is the
all right.
only one with the data, and we did get the
You should
data.
have proof of it.
Stephen's issue is
Adam-
the length of
Adam
time
and-
that it took.
Adam and John, as they say in Italian, basta. That means quiet.
Fair
Basta.
enough.
We have a legitimate debate here that, and we, what I would like to do is, we're gonna have to have a meeting. Two things. One, I'm gonna rewrite this, and I'm gonna ask a couple people to help rewrite it, you know, today over the weekend, so we have it Monday, and take into consideration everything that's said, okay? And write something that we can all go with. But we need to get to the heart of this. Is there an information flow? Is there a communication flow? Is data being used regularly as it should be? You know, real-time data. And then there's a whole other question whether the whole system is adequate enough, but what we have, is it being used?
Yeah.
I want to solve that. I started this debate by putting this in, and I figured it might be a little bit contentious, but we got to solve it. So we need to find, we need to get testimony. We need to get testimony from both, get us together. And I don't know, I have to think about this, the best way to do this. I think we should have an open to anybody who wants to talk, but we should have a discussion about this.
Stephen, this is a very easy point for you to help clear up for us. You were there in the meeting when Jim said that he's the only one with access. Jim, in the same conversation, said we never requested the data, but we did provide the data. Those are all facts. So the only person we could get it from is Jim. And like, there's only one way for us to look at that particular piece of it. But again, I agree with I agree it needs to be fixed. So we're not making excuses for the fact that something needs to be fixed. But at least with that point, Jim straight up said he didn't get a request, but yet we were able to provide the information that he gave us.
So that's not necessarily true, though, John.
Wait a second. But I agree with you, John. But there's one thething here. There's monthly reports that come to you guys automatically from what I understand.
There
so
are some.
You get that.
Absolutely. And your request had a lot of information that didn't come out of this database either. So your request also had additional information, like salaries for teachers and other things that weren't in the database. But this whole conversation is kind of going left because of the conversation with Jim yesterday. And I just wanted to be clear that in terms of, or in the context of that conversation from yesterday, Everything that we have provided from a data aspect, we have requested from Jim and given it to you from Jim. And Jim saying that we didn't request it is completely untrue.
But that's
And-
not, can I just make one comment? Like Jim made the comment that he is the only one that has access to that. He did not mean the entire database.
Right.
He was
Just the
specifically talking
examples that he walked through.
categories of
Right.
different data, different data points. You can go on to CE Main and pull enrollment data and GED completion data and all that data. Like anybody can do that from the Department of Labor.
And I agree with that,
So-
Danielle. And I also feel like we never sent the full commit. I don't know that we said the commission is requesting this data. So when we deal
Right.
with
And
Jim,
we would not.
we would not. We would just
Yeah.
request the data.
That
So
he
and
has
there's
to
some
give her.
language and
Yeah.
nuance that's being conflated.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a meeting.
True.
We're going to figure this out. And I think people ought to be honest. Danielle, you have history here with this same thing. Rochelle, John Feaster.
And Adam Cummings made a comment about a couple weeks ago.
Wait a minute,
Adam, do you remember you said
wait a minute, Daniel. Let me get this concept, this said, because we're going to have a meeting and solve this. And so I'll get back with you guys, and we're going to call a meeting, and we can have it open to other people, but we'll have a discussion about this flow with James or Jim. And we'll do that within a week or two now. It's going to be hard to do this before the commission meeting next Thursday.
Mhm.
It's going to be something we have to work on right after that commission meeting. So we will have a meeting and solve it, and it may end up we have total disagreement that but if there are emails or whatever other way you communicate, text, I don't know. If there
Adam,
are, then we'll use that as okay.
can I
go-
ask Adam a quick question about Comar? Because he made a comment a couple weeks ago about Comar, and this goes straight to the data collection and sharing expectations to be clarified between agencies. Adam, do you remember which Comar is that? Is that the one where it says that data needs to be shared with DPSCS in order for the parole commission to
I'm not sure what exactly you're referencing. If you send it in an email or something, I can dig it up.
Okay, yeah, it
I'm
was in
not
one
sure
of the
which.
commission meetings. That way,
Okay.
when we meet Steve, I can have that Comar for you.
Okay, so we'll set up a meeting. Angel and I'll talk to you guys and set up a meeting. We'll decide who all should be there talking, and anybody's be open to anybody else to watch it. And because I want anything like this to be wide open. Is it fair enough? Okay.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, what's there, I'm in total agreement with. It's really just the whole thought
Okay.
that Jim is saying one thing and Labor is saying another thing. We're kind of caught in the middle, and it just
I'll put
doesn't.
I'll put that in there somehow, so I'm not blaming anybody specific. There's a communication problem here. The old Cool Hand Luke. What we have here is a failure to communicate or something. I don't know.
Multiple
Put that in
agencies
there.
communication breakdown.
Okay,
Yeah.
put that in there. And then, okay, so we'll do that. So I guess let's just leave that then and then go to something more easy for the rest of the report. Do we have all the special education stuff for Elisa?
Steve, so consistent with the data piece, I was just going to chime in here. That one note I did in that draft was that the data from the correctional ed report for 2024 did not match the data that we received as a commission in terms of the number of students with IEPs who passed the GED. And so, for example, I can put in the chat that, the data that we got was for a 2-year period, there were only 8 students with IEPs who passed the GED. But if I look at page 12 of the correctional ed report, it says that there were 10 students that would pass the GED from May 2023 to May 2024, which was only a 1-year period.
Is that the CEC report you're talking about, Alyssa? Rochelle, will you do that
Yeah.
one?
Yeah, is that the wrong report to look at? I was just digging around when I
I was
was.
just asking, so we would know which report.
Yeah, this is what I had put in my footnote. And so I just didn't know from a data, we're talking about data, we're talking about special ed. I didn't know if, and I did have a theory that maybe it was kids with 504 plans, because in the reports from 2023 and 2024. 2023 mentions students with 504 plans, but as folks probably know, 504 you get accommodations, but you're not going to get, you know, the same kind of services as an IEP. So I just wanted to flag that in our draft, which I had drafted, talks about, we were told that there were 8 students that passed the GED for a 2-year period. And I just wanted someone to check that and make sure that that is accurate, and why the 2024 correctional ed report, which is published, seems to say something else.
Okay. All right. I think we can straighten that out. We should probably go with the report, since that's the official report of the agency. And then you can look back and see if that's wrong. Could be wrong in the report. I mean, somebody, and that could be just administrative issue that is no big deal. But there's 2 things here to specialize. Are you satisfied with what that paragraph says? You gave a much longer report, which is into an addendum. And so we're gonna, I'm not sure if we're gonna be able to send the addendum with the interim.
I just wasn't sure what you really wanted, what else I included, which I do think is important, quite honestly, is we've talked about the policies and procedures not having been updated for some period of time and supposedly are finalized, but maybe the commission has gotten them. That's an important, I mean, I think that's an important point.
Well, if you want to add a few little things here about that and give it to us, and Ainsley and I'll work on getting this thing done.
Yeah, I think you all have it from that, what I sent, which is it was just a short line, but I'm happy to send it again.
Okay. Ainsley, have you got it so that we can put it in here?
Yes, I just copied and pasted it.
Okay, so I'm going to change something I said previously. We're going to turn in an interim report that if the commission approves it at the next meeting, and then we're going to send them addendum. I would say the addendum is going to cause some. We're going to need to work on the addendum too, because there's going to be a lot of stuff in there people want to change or put, have some debate about. And so we'll work on that separately and send the addendum later. So all your lengthy reports are going to be kept, and we're going to work on them some more after the interim report. So we get those information, those statements and information that backs it up accurate. Okay, does that make sense? So we're going to send in an interim report after the commission, if the commission approves this next week, to the governor's office, to the president of the Senate, and to the Speaker of the House, saying that more detail will be coming. If more detail can be requested, the additional information is available from the commission, and then we'll work on it going forward, and hopefully get the more detail approved by all of us, and continue with all of our issues. And then we're also going to do this meeting with James Bowden. We're going to set that up so we have a clear sense of responsibility, and maybe and see if we can solve it. And if we can't solve it, we won't put it. Well, if it comes to a statement, he says, she says, but we don't have any proof, we're going to say there's a disagreement on an issue.
So that might be because the 2024 CEC report does from May 23 to May 2022 to May of 2024. So
Yes.
is what's in that report.
Yes, but when we asked for the data as a commission, it was annual. It was annualized, 2023 and 2024. So either way, it's going to be less.
Yeah, that's
still covered the
difference.
And so
we usually do fiscal years. So that's
all right.
Yeah.
Alyssa, why don't you edit that to the extent that you need to, and settle on whether it's 8, and give the source a report from DOL, or if it's from CEC and a report, just say what it's from.
Yeah, Danielle, maybe you can figure it out. It just seemed odd.
Rochelle, I think the best thing is for Rochelle, just talk to her special ed coordinator.
Yeah, we should get the accurate number.
I'm going to put something in by Monday, because we're going to talk to the governor's office on the draft of this thing and work on it, because they want to see it also. And so I pick 8 or 10. I don't think it makes too much difference right now for that. We can fix that later. All right, because if it were like 8 and 30, or, you know, the big discrepancy, but 8 and 10, given how data's management timelines, it ain't a big deal for that issue. Okay.
But it does go to the data issue. Like you should be able to say how many kids with IEPs pass the GED, and it shouldn't be, you know.
Yeah, and so I think you could put a statement in there if you give us this, you know, we have a question about data that we need to resolve, and put it in there. We're still, yeah, just say we have an issue that we haven't been able to solve as to the exact numbers because of data issues, and then you got it in there, and then we can, you know, and everybody should be happy with that because we're not blaming anybody. We're saying we're trying to solve a data problem.
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's in CE student too. So like I said, I would rather have, you know, DOL can pull that quite easily.
Okay.
The numbers.
Okay, so if we go on here, because we don't have too much time, we have 15 minutes. Take that next, come on back down. That was the old data collection and sharing. Just take that out.
So this was an issue that we talked a little bit about when we were discussing GED.
Oh, okay, we can
I'm happy to take this out because I don't know.
Let's rename it.
So this goes to our database. So because labor does not keep in their database who would have gotten the GED or high school diploma prior to incarceration. We do, though, in our OCMS. So not only do we have who got their GED during incarceration, but we also have those who got prior to. So was there a question about that?
Oh, I think that this is I was a little bit confused about this. We had talked about it in previous meetings, that I feel like at this point, if this is going to the commission next week, we should probably we can talk about this at another time.
We can pull that information very easily.
I don't think this should be in there then. If there was some other point so just take the whole thing out, including the title, data collection and sharing, because that's what the one is that we inserted up above. Okay. So with that, now we have this is more okay, job assignments and mandatory ed. Are there any questions on this or edits on any of this? I mean, we've gone through it already this week and think we have it all okay, I hope.
Can you go back up to where the lack of, that's the one we're talking about, right?
Yeah, that's the next one, lack of alternative job assignments. And so this was written by some of you have given back to us. So, I mean, if whoever wrote this is fine with it, you know.
I think this was something in the higher ed one that we changed that we're going to be changing some of the language, Steve, when we meet on Tuesday. So we'll have that for you.
Yeah, but that's we're Tuesdays. We want to get this thing to the commission. I don't know. Is it going to change very much?
Yes. And we can't meet before Tuesday because I got to be in court on Monday.
All right. Well, if you send us something, we can put it in. But it's got to be. Can you do it Tuesday morning?
We're meeting. Me and Andrea at the meeting yesterday. We all decided that we were meeting at 1 p.m. on Tuesday.
The meeting Monday, I think we're just doing copy editing. So
So we can put this in later.
Okay. Because there's a couple ones, even
all right. So just put a note there next to the top of the title, lack of job assignments, to be replaced by on Tuesday by higher ed committee. Okay. Cool. Mandatory ed. Boy, we went through this a lot, so hoping I don't have to get into a big fight about this right now. Waiting lists. I think we can take this out now because we've talked about it in general, and it's more of just a general data thing that okay. School closures. I think this is actually a positive thing because it outlines a problem and then says there's some ways maybe we can solve this and do some things. So we all agree it's a problem and there's a lot of reasons for it. This is Alyssa. This was with you with special ed, and there's an issue here that has to be fixed, but in legislation, and Delegate Pasteur is very much involved with this. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Higher ed, Andrea, since you're here, I'll let you take all these higher ed things and say, go through them and see if everybody's okay with them.
Sure. At our meeting yesterday, we went through these areas and made some edits. The only piece that we're still working on is what Danielle just talked about, the incentives that we're going to work on Tuesday. I don't know if anyone else has feedback on any of these areas.
So you have edits for everything except that one area?
Yes, just the one section. I think everything was good.
Can you give it to send it to Ainsley and me? Those sections that have been edited?
We're going to be looking over the higher ed, the whole higher ed thing. That's the one thing we're going to be doing Tuesday.
Yeah, Ainsley also made some edits yesterday. I think there were really some very light edits. I don't think there was major.
They're all
I think we're going to
reflected in
just
this
be
document.
fine tuning stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the meeting to? I seem to have fallen off the higher ed group.
That it's just something for us who are very directly like on the ground that we're going to be looking at some of the stuff.
I don't need any more
I mean,
meetings than necessary.
So is there going to be some big drastic edit to this thing, or are we talking about a sentence or two, or
It's just going to be some fine tuning, especially the incentive piece, the job assignment one, but it's really just going to be fine tuning.
Well, but you're going to fine tune the whole thing, or I thought you could have it on. Well, are there areas here that you're okay with? That
I think there was like just 2 or 3 areas that we're looking at. Specifically the incentives, the job assignments, and I forget what the other one was.
So Ainsley's going to have a lot of work to do because we're going to have Tuesday, and then we're going to try to send this thing out to the commission for a one-day review because they're going to meet on Thursday. So I'm trying to give the commission, some of whom aren't involved at these meetings, a heads up, enough time to read these things. So Ainsley, if you
that's okay.
are you meeting with them?
I'll meet with them and we'll go through it and we'll be able to figure it out.
The changes. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes me feel comfortable because right after that, you and I should talk and then we send this thing out. Okay. Career technology and workforce development is Diana here. I don't think she could make it, but we got we went through this with transitional program completion being low. We transitional instructors understaffed, and we found out that we put that in, there's going to be more hired. So I think we're pretty good here. John and Rochelle, you were involved with this, and so if there's anything else, what are the other topics? Transitional instruction. What's next? Data collection and sharing. Let's see if that affects what we said earlier. Bring it back down a little bit. Okay, data collection. Department of Safety and Security. I don't think this affects the other data sharing thing. This is talking about two areas sharing data. So we can leave that there. Is that okay? And then we got the whole thing about federal requirements. Who knows what that's going to end up being? Okay. Since we'll leave that then, and then matching programming opportunities post-release employment requirements. We went through that and had a good positive discussion on barriers to employment. We went through commission-wide focus. We went through that we don't have enough technology. and the issue of contracts that sometimes with these private contractors screws things up for us because they have certain requirements or data collection and sharing that, why don't we just take that out? That's because we've covered that in the other discussion, and we're going to reword that paragraph anyway.
The transition one, was there a comment? I saw it said about going down to the 600 certificates in 2014. That's true, but did it say why? Because labor lost a lot of teachers. So I want to make sure that it says in there the reason for it moving from 1,300 to 600.
Well,
to
the
give
very
them-
very next paragraph talks about the staffing issue.
Okay, all right. It went quick, so.
And they're
Just want to
coincidentally,
make sure we did that, gave that reason.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, I think there's like 50 or 60 less staff overall, and I think that more staff were doing different things when you compare the two time frames as well. So even though we were short, maybe a dozen transitional less teachers there, we were short like 60 less teachers overall.
yeah, I think we kind of laid that out there pretty well with the numbers, and it's just saying we've got a problem of staffing primarily, and there's some other issues, but not anything I think controversial. Data collection, sharing. That's and then where were we? Administrative model. And one of our things we're going to do is look at other models around the country for information. We have started doing that. We're going to continue to do that. And Lois Davis from Rand Corporation said she'd give us a free assistance for a while on that. So is that the end of it?
I just have one question. I know yesterday we talked about the restrictions around formerly incarcerated people entering the facilities post-release to once they are considered to hold jobs. And some of those jobs may be tied to a college or university organization, and it requires them to enter the facility to do parts or most or parts of their employment, but due to the restrictions listed in COMAR, there are some barriers set there that prohibited individuals from returning back to the institution. So I know both Johns, myself, and there was another individual on the call. We wanted to kind of talk that through. Is that something that we're considering? I guess this is a question for the group. Is that something we're considering adding to this report? Or is that something we should talk about adding at a later time? I just want to.
Here's my take on it. And if somebody disagrees, go ahead. This commission is supposed to work directly on the correctional education program reforms. And that, to me, that means as the program goes out, people leave, are they getting jobs? And if they aren't, what's going on? And you and I, all of us probably know pretty well there are barriers and tons of barriers. And so I want that to continue to be an issue and in a bigger report that we get now. So this is, let's say it's a placekeeper here for an issue that is very dear to your heart and other people on this commission and thousands of people who can't get employment or, and so it's not going to get lost.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So 1257.
Steve, I had just one other really quick thing that I can just send to you and Ainsley, not to add work, but on the transition youth transferring from high school program, what I feel like is missing the concept of the credits. That people come in with 20 credits and only need 2 credits to graduate, but they have to start all the way back in the beginning with a GED. And so I'm wondering if we can just add, and Ainsley, I could maybe send some suggested language that just captures, it's not that they would prefer or thrive, but they were almost graduating and then they're locked up. It's a lost opportunity because you're setting people all the way back to the beginning of the
How about a quick line right after the italics on the top before we say welcome, a quick line about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with her. Yeah, that it should be under 21 may have only a few credits to graduate versus prefer or thrive Because I will tell you right now, that's not necessarily true.
Okay, we can
Just
put it
that
there.
they may only have a few credits to graduate
Exactly. Yep.
Okay,
from the,
that's a better place for it. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we got 1 minute, and then Ainsley's got to go. And I know you guys have been working hard. Thank all of you who have been working this week. We've had a lot of meetings. So this is a work in progress. Not everybody is satisfied, want to put more in or change something. We're going to do that. We're going to keep working on it, working on it together. We have a dispute, we're going to get everybody that's involved to solve it. And I don't want things going out that